thought it would be funny. It started as a birthday joke from my younger brother Miles. He handed me a DNA kit wrapped in tissue paper and grinned like he had just discovered fire. "Let's find out if you're secretly a Viking," he said, "or maybe a Russian spy. Either way, I get the credit." We laughed. My mom, Lara, rolled her eyes playfully. My dad, Grant, told Miles to stop feeding me conspiracy theories over breakfast. It was just one of those easy mornings, the kind that makes you feel like nothing could ever go wrong. I swabbed my cheek, sealed the envelope, and dropped it in the mailbox on my way to work. I teach 5th grade science. I've always been the type of person who likes answers. I like facts, data, evidence. The idea of learning about my ancestry sounded harmless, even fun, like solving a mystery with no real consequences. I didn't know then that the mystery was me. A week later, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang while I was grading papers. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. "Is this Andlé?" The voice was calm, female, professional. I said yes. "This is Gone Trace Labs. We need to verify something related to your DNA results." "In person?" I repeated. "Why?" There was a pause. Then her voice lowered, just slightly, like she didn't want anyone else to hear what she was about to say. "Your DNA matched a missing child case from 1993. I froze. My pen slipped from my fingers and hit the floor. I immediately thought it had to be a mistake, a mixed-up test, a glitch, someone with the same name. But the woman didn't sound unsure. She sounded careful, trained, serious. "We've flagged this as a possible critical match," she continued. "A child abducted from a home in Nebraska. The parents never stopped searching. The profile is still active in the national database." I stared at the laminated volcano diagrams my students had colored in crayon, trying to understand what she was saying. I wasn't missing. I wasn't abducted. I'd lived in the same house with the same family my entire life. I was safe. I was loved. This wasn't my story. That evening, when I got home, I told my mom. We were in the kitchen. She was peeling carrots for soup. I said it lightly, almost joking, expecting her to laugh it off with me. "Mom, something weird happened. The DNA company called. They said I matched a missing child from the 90s. She dropped the carrot. It hit the floor with a soft thud, and her entire body went still. The color drained from her face. She looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. I asked what was wrong. She didn't answer. She didn't bend down to pick up the carrot. She just stared, eyes wide, lips pressed together like she was holding something back. Then her voice cracked. "You were never supposed to find out." My stomach flipped. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "Find out what?" She reached for the counter to steady herself. Her hands were shaking. She suddenly looked so small, so fragile, like the weight she'd been carrying had finally become too heavy. "You weren't adopted," she whispered. "We didn't go through an agency. There weren't any papers, no court, no records." I stared at her. "Then what? What does that mean?" Her eyes filled with tears. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face. "We found you," she said. That was the moment I stopped breathing. "You found me?" I asked. "Where?" She didn't blink. Her voice broke again. "You were left in our driveway in the middle of the night, wrapped in a blanket. You were 6 months old." She paused, and there was a note. My chest felt tight. What did it say? She took a breath that sounded like it hurt. One word, she said. "Run." My name is Andlé. I'm 29 years old. I live in Loveland, Colorado, in a 2-bedroom house with a backyard full of wildflowers and a scruffy rescue dog named Clover. I've had the same best friend since middle school. I bake banana bread on Sundays. I teach 5th grade science at Lincoln Elementary. My life is small, but it's full. It's mine. Or at least, I thought it was. Growing up, I had the kind of family people envied. My mom, Dra, made handwritten lunch notes and lavender tea when I had bad days. My dad, Grant, taught me how to change a tire, calculate compound interest, and build a campfire in the rain. My younger brother, Miles, is 4 years younger than me, but acts like the older one. He's the funny one, the bold one, the one who talks to strangers and sings too loudly in the car. We weren't rich, we weren't perfect, but we were close. We had inside jokes and movie nights. When I scraped my knees, my mom kissed them. When I aced my SATs, my dad framed the score report. I never felt like I didn't belong. I had no reason to question who I was. My birth certificate listed Laura and Grant Blythe. My baby pictures filled every shelf. My childhood memories felt solid and real. Camping trips to Rocky Mountain National Park, science fairs, Christmas mornings in matching pajamas. So when Miles gave me the DNA kit, I didn't hesitate. It didn't feel like opening a door. It felt like a toy. I didn't know it was the last normal choice I would make for a very long time. A few days later, we were sitting around the kitchen table eating waffles and arguing about whether Pluto should still count as a planet. Miles was scrolling on his phone and said, "You think they'll find out you're descended from ancient royalty?" I laughed. "I'll settle for mildly interesting." Mom smiled from the stove. "You'll be interesting no matter what your DNA says." Dad grunted from behind his newspaper. "As long as it doesn't tell us she's related to politicians, we're fine." We all laughed. It was a normal morning. I didn't know it was the last one before everything changed. Even now, I keep thinking back to how ordinary it all was. The mugs on the table, the smell of maple syrup, the scrape of chair legs against wood. There was no thunder, no warning, just a phone call that cracked everything open. After I told my mom what the DNA company had said, she fell apart so fast I barely recognized her. I had always seen her as gentle, but strong, the kind of person who carried everyone else's pain without showing cracks. But that night, she crumbled in front of me. We sat in the kitchen for hours, neither of us saying much. She made tea even though she never drank it. I asked the same question over and over, phrasing it differently each time, trying to make it make sense. "You found me? What does that mean?" She wouldn't look me in the eye when she answered. "Your father and I woke up to a noise on the front porch," she said. "We thought it was raccoons. It wasn't. It was you." She told me I was wrapped in a yellow flannel blanket, wearing a pink onesie, crying softly. There was a note pinned to the fabric. One word: run. My dad called the police. They came, took pictures, collected the note. But there were no reports of a missing baby, no witnesses, no car seen in the area. No one came forward. Eventually, the case went cold. My parents, if I could still call them that, were left with a decision. They hadn't planned it, they hadn't stolen me, but they kept me. They never legally adopted me because there was no one to adopt me from. No file, no family. Just a baby appearing like a ghost in the night. My mom said she kept waiting for someone to knock on the door. That first week, she didn't sleep. She kept me in her arms constantly, terrified I would vanish as suddenly as I'd arrived. But no one ever came. The police suggested it could have been an abandoned baby, an illegal drop-off, maybe a frightened teenage mother, maybe something worse. They didn't have answers, and eventually they stopped asking questions. My parents didn't. Instead, they gave me a name, a home, a family. They raised me like I was theirs because, to them, I was. For 29 years, that was my story. I was their daughter. Full stop, no footnotes, no shadows. But now, that story was cracking. Now there were questions I couldn't ignore. Now there was a woman on the other end of the phone saying I might be someone else entirely. And the worst part was that I wasn't sure if I wanted to know the truth or if I could live without it. The next morning, I called the number back. I needed to hear it again. I needed proof that I hadn't misheard, that I wasn't spiraling into some absurd daydream built on a dropped call and a cracked memory. Gantrace Labs, this is Dr. Kelsey Arden. Her voice was the same, calm, neutral, not cold. "This is Anne Blay," I said. "You called me yesterday about a DNA match." I waited for her to walk it back, to tell me it was a false alarm, a system glitch, someone else's file opened by mistake. But she didn't. "Yes, Miss Blee," she said. "Thank you for calling back. We'd like to speak with you in person. This match is connected to a case flagged in our forensic partnership database. It's highly sensitive. We're asking you to come into our Denver office." "A case?" I asked. "What kind of case?" There was a pause, and then her voice lowered slightly. "A missing child report. The child disappeared in 1993 when she was 6 months old." I stared at the coffee mug in my hand, the one that said, "World's okayest teacher," and felt my stomach flip. "I'm not a missing person," I said. "I've never been missing." "I understand this may be a shock," she replied. "We're not saying you are, only that your DNA has produced a direct match to biological parents listed in the national system. We'd like to verify the match under supervision before any further steps are taken." I agreed to come in. I didn't know what else to do. When I hung up, I just sat there. My hands were cold. My head was spinning. I knew I had to tell someone, but I wasn't ready to go back to my mom yet. I wasn't sure what she could even tell me beyond what she already had. "You weren't adopted. We found you." I didn't know how to process that sentence. How does someone just get found? Like a backpack, like a stray dog, like a secret someone wanted to bury. I called Miles. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, sis, find out your royalty yet?" My voice cracked when I said his name, Miles. His tone changed instantly. "What happened?" "I need to tell you something," I said. "It's serious." I told him everything. About the call, about the match, about the baby from 1993, about the note pinned to my blanket. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally he said, "I don't understand. How is that even possible? You're not adopted." "I was found," I said, "in our driveway." "That doesn't make sense," he said quietly. "None of it does." He took a breath. "I'm coming over." 10 minutes later, he walked into my house without knocking, dropped onto the couch, elbows on his knees, and stared at me like he was trying to memorize my face. "So," he said slowly, "this DNA company thinks you're a baby who went missing 30 years ago." "They don't think," I said. "They matched me, and Mom confirmed everything." He nodded once. "So what now?" "I have an appointment in Denver. They want to verify the match." He didn't hesitate. "You're not going alone." We drove down the next morning. The silence between us was thick, but not tense, like we were both trying to hold on to the version of life we knew before it slipped away completely. The Gone Trace building looked more like a bank than a lab, modern, glass-walled, clinical. Dr. Arden met us in the lobby. She looked to be in her 40s or early 50s, her hair pulled back, her hands steady. She spoke with the precision of someone who had delivered devastating news before. She led us into a small room with 2 chairs, a monitor, and a folder on the table. She explained everything carefully. In 1993, an infant named Arya Fenwick was taken from her home in Lincoln, Nebraska. There was no sign of forced entry, no ransom demand. Her parents never stopped searching. Their DNA had remained in the Federal Registry for Missing Persons for over 25 years. She opened the folder and handed me a photograph. A baby with dark eyes and a round face wrapped in a yellow flannel blanket. My chest tightened. I had that blanket. It was in my keepsake chest at home. My mom had always told me it was my first gift, that she kept it because I loved the texture. "We ran your sample through 3 databases," Dr. Arden continued. "You are a direct biological match to Monica and Jude Fenwick. 99.9% certainty." Miles leaned forward. "What does that mean for her? What happens now?" Dr. Arden didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me. "Do you want to initiate contact?" "They're still alive?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "They've never stopped hoping you'd be found." The room felt like it tilted. I thought of the woman who raised me, who kissed my forehead when I had fevers. I thought of another woman, somewhere else, waiting year after year, never knowing if her daughter was alive or dead. Both stories couldn't be true, yet somehow they were. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my back in the dark, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly above me. The silence wasn't comforting. It was suffocating. Everything I knew about who I was had started to dissolve. I wasn't just Ann Blythe, science teacher, daughter, sister. I was also Arya Fenwick, the baby who vanished from her crib in Nebraska 29 years ago. I couldn't stop thinking about Monica Fenwick, my biological mother, somewhere out there, watching every birthday pass, wondering if I was gone forever. I also couldn't stop thinking about Elare, the woman who raised me, whose hands braided my hair, whose voice soothed my nightmares. She wasn't perfect, but she was mine. And now I had to face the possibility that she had made a choice that stole someone else's child. By morning, my mind still wasn't clear, but my decision was made. I needed to know everything. Not because I was ready, I wasn't, but because there was no going back. Miles drove me back to the lab. He was quiet but present, glancing at me every time he thought I wasn't looking. He didn't ask if I was sure. He already knew. Dr. Arden greeted us again, this time in a smaller room with a large screen mounted on the wall. She folded her hands. "We've spoken to Monica and Jude," she said. "They've been informed of the match and have asked to speak with you. There's no pressure. We can end the call at any time." I nodded. My hands were cold. I pressed them between my knees to keep them from shaking. The screen flickered to life. A woman's face appeared first. Monica. She looked tired but alert, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years but refused to close her eyes. Her dark hair was streaked with gray. Her eyes matched mine exactly. She covered her mouth the second she saw me. Her shoulders trembled and she whispered something I couldn't hear. Then a man stepped into frame behind her. Jude. His jaw clenched the way Miles's does. His eyes were red, but he didn't cry. He just stared, frozen, like he was afraid to blink. No one spoke at first. Then Monica leaned closer to the screen, as if she could touch it. "Your eyes," she said softly. "They haven't changed." I tried to speak, but nothing came out. I couldn't tell if I felt like I was floating or drowning. Dr. Arden guided the moment gently. "An, this is Monica and Jude Fenwick. They are your biological parents." Monica wiped her eyes and smiled, even though her hands were shaking. "You don't have to say anything," she said. "I just wanted to see you. I've imagined this moment for so long, and you look just like your grandmother. She was beautiful." Jude finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but steady. "We don't want to take anything from you. We just want to know you're safe, that you're happy. We stayed in the same house all these years in case you ever came back. We never changed our number, never changed our address. We left the porch light on every night." "I'm sorry," I said, even though I didn't know who I was apologizing to. Monica nodded. "Of course you are. None of this makes sense. But we're here, and we're not going anywhere." The call ended after 20 minutes. Dr. Arden asked if I was okay. I nodded, though I wasn't sure. Miles drove us home in silence. When we walked inside, my mom was sitting at the kitchen table, exactly where I'd left her the night before. The same mug of tea sat untouched beside her. She looked up at me, fear written all over her face. "Did you talk to them?" she asked. I nodded. She reached for me. I stepped back. "I need you to tell me everything," I said. "From the beginning. No lies." Her hands fell into her lap. "I never wanted to lie to you," she said. "I was just afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That someone would come and take you away." I sat across from her, my heart heavy. I was angry, but I could also see how broken she was. She told me everything about the night they found me, the note, the police investigation, and how, over time, the silence convinced them that maybe I was meant to be theirs. "I know it was wrong," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I couldn't let you go." That night, I wrote in my journal for hours. I didn't know how to forgive yet, but I knew I didn't want to hate her. I also knew I wanted to know Monica and Jude, not as strangers, but as people who had waited for me, who had never stopped searching. I didn't belong to just one family anymore. I belonged to two, and it was time to stop running from that truth. 2 weeks after the video call, I flew to Nebraska. Monica and Jude offered to come to me, but I said no. I needed to go there. I needed to see the place where everything started, where everything was taken, and maybe where something could be returned. Miles insisted on driving me to the airport. When we pulled up to the curb, he parked instead of just dropping me off. "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I'm going." He nodded. "Good. That's what you do when you're scared. You go anyway." He reached into his jacket and handed me a folded piece of paper. "In case you forget who you are." It was a photo of us at 10 and 6, covered in mud, holding frogs, grinning like lunatics. Mom had taken it. I didn't know how to explain how much it meant that he saw both sides of me and didn't ask me to choose. When I landed, Monica and Jude were waiting outside baggage claim. They didn't rush toward me. They didn't cry. They just stood there, cautious and open, until I walked toward them. Monica stepped forward first. "Hi, Ann," she said, "or Arya, or whichever name you want to be called." "Ann is okay," I said. "That's who I've been." She nodded. "It's nice to meet you, Ann." She didn't hug me. Neither did Jude. We all seemed to know it was too soon, too fragile. But as we got into the car, I saw Monica's hand reach back from the front seat and rest on the center console, halfway between us. I didn't take it, but I didn't look away. Their home was small and warm, the same address listed in the case file. Nothing had changed on the outside. Inside, it felt like stepping into the past. Baby photos lined the mantel. A crib stood boxed up in the corner of the guest room. A pink blanket was folded carefully on top. "We couldn't throw anything out," Monica said when she saw me looking. "It felt like if we did, we were saying goodbye, and we never wanted to say goodbye." They made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup. Apparently, it had been my favorite as a baby. I didn't remember it, but I ate it anyway. We sat at the table, talking carefully. They asked about my life, my work, my dog. They laughed at stories about Miles and my students. I asked about their lives, too. They were kind, but I could tell they had stayed frozen in time, waiting for a future that had never arrived until now. After dinner, Jude brought out a box and set it on the coffee table. "There's something we want to show you," he said. Inside were the original police report, newspaper clippings, flyers, the blanket, and the note. I had seen photocopies at the lab, but the real thing was different. The paper was yellowed, worn. One word, written in hurried black ink: "Run." "We never found out who wrote it," Monica said. "The police think it was someone who cared, someone who wanted you safe. Maybe the person who took you wasn't the one who left you." I turned the note over in my hands. My mind raced. My birth mother? A neighbor? Someone who saw something and didn't know how to report it? There were no answers in that box, only pieces. Then Monica pulled out a photograph. It was taken in the hospital the day I was born. Her face was younger, but the shape of it was mine. Her hair curled at the ends, just like mine does in the summer. In her arms was a tiny baby. Me. The bracelet read, "Arya Fenwick, July 24th, 1993. My hand trembled as I held it. "You are her," Monica said softly. Not like a revelation, but like something she had always known. We sat in silence for a long time, surrounded by nearly 30 years of loss and hope. Finally, I stood and walked toward Monica. This time, I reached for her. She pulled me into a hug that was tight and full of breath and sorrow and joy all at once. Jude joined us, his arms circling both of us. For a moment, I was in the center of a family I had never known. It didn't erase the years or undo the pain, but it built something new, a bridge. That night before bed, I called my mom. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I said. "Are you okay?" "I am," she said. "Are you?" "Yeah," I said, surprised to realize it was true. "I think I am." When I came back from Nebraska, nothing looked different, but everything felt different. The walls in my house were the same. My classroom was still covered in solar system models and glitter from a failed science fair experiment. Clover greeted me at the door like she always did, tail wagging, completely unaware that my entire sense of self had shifted. But I was changed. I wasn't just Ann Blay anymore. I was also Arya Fenwick. And somehow, I had to learn how to live as both. I started therapy a week later. My counselor, Sarah, asked me a question in our very first session that caught me completely off guard. She said, "Who are you if you stop trying to protect everyone else's feelings?" The question stayed with me. For so long, I had worried about hurting my mom, about betraying the people who raised me, about overwhelming the people who had waited for me. I had spent so much energy managing everyone else's pain that I had never really asked myself what I needed, what I wanted to do with the truth. I kept visiting Monica and Jude. At first, it was just phone calls and short weekend trips, then longer visits. I walked through the park where they used to take me when I was a baby. I sat in the church pew where they held vigils for me every year on my birthday. I flipped through the scrapbook they made after every holiday they celebrated without me, always leaving a blank space labeled Arya's page, just in case I ever came home. It broke my heart and healed it at the same time. I also spent more time with my mom and dad, the parents who found me, who raised me, who loved me even when their love was born in fear. I didn't forgive them overnight. There were things I still questioned, things I struggled to accept. But I could see their pain, and I could see their love. Neither had been fake. Both had been real. One afternoon, I sat in the backyard with my mom. Clover was asleep at our feet, and the wind moved softly through the trees. She looked over at me and asked quietly, "Do you hate me?" "No," I said, "but I need you to be different now. I need you to stop pretending everything was okay, because it wasn't." She nodded, tears filling her eyes, but she didn't look away. "I know," she said. "I'm trying." That was enough for me, at least in that moment. Miles stayed my anchor through all of it. When things felt too big, he reminded me who I was before any of this happened. He joked that he deserved partial credit for solving a 30-year-old mystery by buying me a DNA kit on sale. But the truth was, I had to be the one willing to open it. I had to be the one brave enough to see what came next. No one forced me to take that step, and that mattered. A few months later, Monica gave me a letter she had written the week after I disappeared. She had never sent it. It was folded in the back of a drawer next to hospital bracelets and ultrasound photos. It read, "If you ever read this, I want you to know that your life matters. Whether you remember me or not, whether you love me or don't, I will always be your mother. You are not lost. You are loved." I cried when I read it, not because it was perfect, but because it was human. There was no neat ending to this story. No one walked away with every answer. We never found out who left me on that porch. We never learned what happened between the moment I was taken and the moment I arrived in Colorado. Some chapters will always be blank. But not all stories need to be complete to be meaningful. I know who I am now. I'm An. I'm Arya. I'm a teacher, a daughter, a sister. I belong to more than one past. I belong to more than one family. And that doesn't make me broken. It makes me whole in a way I never expected. There are still days when the weight of it all catches me by surprise. A familiar song, a scent in the air, a photo tucked into a drawer. But then I remember that I survived a truth bigger than I ever asked for. And instead of letting it crush me, I let it shape me. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see someone braver than before, someone honest, someone who doesn't run from the truth. And when my students ask where I come from, I smile and say, "That's a long story, but it's a good one." Because it is. Even with the pain, even with the unanswered questions, it's a good story, and it's mine. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you. This has been the most personal, disorienting, and strangely beautiful chapter of my life. I shared it because I know there are people out there who feel like something is missing, like there's a question no one is willing to answer. Maybe this gives someone else the courage to start looking. If this story moved you, please like the video and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Drop a comment below. I read every one, and I'd love to hear from you. And if you want more real stories that go deeper than the headlines, subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to come, and I'd love to have you here for it. Thanks for listening. Stay curious.